Some of you don't hate God. You hate the version of God that was handed to you. Yes. The God who prefers sons. The God who silences daughters. The God who calls male domination order. The God who baptizes abuse with Bible verses. But that God is not the God of the scripture. No. Let's go back to the beginning. Genesis doesn't say God created man in his image and woman as an accessory. It says, so God created humanity in his image, male and female, he created them. Male and female, not hierarchy and helper, not original and derivative, not divine and secondary. Both bear the image. And here is something most people miss. The image of God is not split in half like a mirror. Women are not half image bearers. Men are not fuller reflections. Every woman carries the full dignity of divine imprint, and every man does too. That text exalts humanity together. And before sin enters the world, before patriarchy, domination, before distortion, God looks at something and says for the first time, this is not good. It wasn't rebellion, not weakness, not femininity. It was loneliness. It is not good for man to be alone. So God creates what the Hebrew calls an Ezer kinegdo. We've misinterpreted that for centuries. Helper sounds like assistant, but Ezer is a word scripture repeatedly uses for God himself when he rescues Israel. It means strong aid, powerful ally, rescuer. God does not create a subordinate. He creates a corresponding strength, a co-laborer, a co-ruler, and together, male and female, they were commissioned to steward the earth. Look, the domination of woman does not appear in Genesis 1 or 2. It appears after sin fractures the world in Genesis 3. Subjugation is a symptom of the fall. It is not God's design. Let's go further. There is a story buried in the Torah that almost nobody talks about. 5 women, the daughters of Zelophehad, right? Their father dies. The inheritance law at the time defaults property to sons, but there are no sons. And under the existing system, their father's name would disappear. Their economic future would evaporate. Now, these girls refused silence. They stand before Moses, before the leaders, before the entire assembly, and they say, why should our father's name vanish because he had no sons? Moses does something radical. He doesn't dismiss them. He brings their case before God, and God responds with words that would shake every person who thinks heaven is indifferent to women. The daughters are right, and God changes the inheritance law. God legislates inclusion. In the middle of an ancient Near Eastern patriarchal culture, God interrupts the system and says, they are right. The Bible does not hide this story, it preserves it, because the character of God is being revealed. Now, let's take a look at Jesus. If God were invested in preserving male domination, Christ could have reinforced it. Instead, he dismantles abusive power by redefining authority. He touches women publicly. He teaches women publicly. He receives theological insight from women. Women fund his ministry. Women are the first witnesses of his resurrection in a culture where female testimony was discounted. And on the night before crucifixion, the King of the universe kneels and washes feet. That is masculinity purified. Authority expressed as service, strength expressed as self-giving love, and leadership expressed as sacrifice. His power is not diminished by tenderness. His authority is not threatened by humility. And if Christ is the image of the invisible God, then the clearest picture of God we have is not domination. It is self-giving love. Some of you were told God prefers men. The scripture ends with sons and daughters prophesying. Some of you were told God tolerates women. But scripture begins with woman bearing his image. Some of you were told your silence was obedience. But the scripture records God changing laws because 5 women spoke up. Now, let me say this carefully. The Bible reflects ancient cultures. but it also subverts them from within. And when scripture has been weaponized against women, what was being defended was not God's character, it was human control. God is not insecure. God is not threatened by female strength. God is not glorified by your diminishment. He is a father. He is a good father. And a good father does not erase his daughters. If your wound came from misuse of scripture, hear this. The distortion is not the revelation. The abuse is not the author. And the God you were taught to fear may actually be the one who has been defending you all along. You are not an afterthought in redemptive history. You are not a theological concession. You are not a secondary reflection. You are image bearer, co-heir, called, seen, heard, chosen. And the same God who said they are right is still listening. God bless you.